Alex Karp is here. He is the co-founder and CEO of Pallanteer Technologies. The company's data mining software is used by various government agencies in the United States, including the CIA, FBI, and NYPD. It is also used by hedge funds and other financial firms. Karp is a Stanford graduate and co-founded the company with ex-PayPal engineers. I am pleased to have him here at this table for the first time. He does not do many television interviews. And for that, I'm also pleased to have him here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Let me talk a bit about the background, which is interesting. Stanford Law, wasn't it?
It was Stanford Law.
And then you went to Frankfurt?
Then I went to Frankfurt and got
a PhD in neoclassical...
social philosophy, which is a fancy way of saying a quick path to being unemployed. Certainly to be the highest educated, least earning person on the planet.
And why did you do that?
Well, the same reason I got involved in founding Pallanteer. I was really passionate about the issues. I largely wasn't putting money ahead of what I thought was important. Some of the ideas I dealt with were actually quite important. What does it mean to know something? What does it mean to communicate it? What is the foundation of Western society? Can we participate as citizens, and how? I was very passionate about those ideas, just like I'm passionate about my business, Pallanteer.
And also about anti-Semitism and other issues that you thought needed to be written about and discussed.
I published widely on both technical issues, kind of issues involving the convergence of neo-Kantian philosophy and Freud, and on discrimination, and on civil liberties, and on anything that anyone would read, which is what you do when you're an aspiring academic with essentially an interest in writing. And then I migrated into a business context.
And what caused you to do that?
Well, you know, the interesting thing about academia is that it's more interesting to the people in it than it is to anyone else. You know, and the impact,
yes,
yes, you end up fighting about small things that may be fairly unimportant to other people. And I thought that while the ideas were important, the actual impact they were going to have was going to be very small. I mean, the kind of work I did was intelligible to probably 30, 40 people in the world. So it seemed more interesting and compelling to do something else, get involved in business and see how that worked out. And some of the issues in business are actually, from an academic perspective, also quite compelling.
So where did you migrate to?
Well, it turned out I had a facility for, I was pretty good at making money. And I was very bad at getting paid. So I basically turned the ability to make money and get paid into a business where I looked for other people who were good at making money and bad at getting paid, and I taught them how to make money quicker and to get paid fairly.
This was kind of a venture capital kind of operation, or?
Basically my own business, which I built, and I went around looking for motley people who had academic proclivities and were interested in business, and I would approach them and say, oh, why don't you build a business? I'll help you. And I did that for a couple years, and then I reconnected with Peter.
Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel. And we began, along with a couple other guys, to build this company.
And while there, you had the idea for Pallanteer?
Yeah, well, you know, post 9/11, I think the idea, again, it was Silicon Valley ought to be involved in fighting terrorism and protecting our civil liberties. And you know, terrorism is asymmetric. Asymmetry presupposes software because you're finding needles in haystacks. Actually using an approach that's not exactly like data mining. It was a critique on some of the data mining approaches that had been used at PayPal. And we thought that that approach would be very effective in this context, and it would do two things. It would allow humans to find needles in haystacks, so make the data intelligible to you and me, which it's not. And by doing that, it would allow them to find bad people trying to destroy our society, and could be used also to protect civil liberties by making the data sets transparent, so that it was very clear what the government is doing and how they're doing it, which is a particular passion of our company.
This may be obvious, but why did you name it Pallanteer after the seeing stones in The Lord of the Rings?
Yes. For those of you who had a social life in high school, you may not realize what Pallanteer is. For those of us who didn't have a social life, you immediately jumps out at you as the seeing stones in Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And they allowed the West to communicate, or the forces of good to communicate and see into vast distances. And we thought it was a fitting name for a product that allows you to see into large databases, but doesn't allow you to see things you're not allowed to see, which is basically what the seeing stones do.
Which is one of the problems because of civil liberties and everything else, or
well,
not?
Yes. So the basic idea is that the West, or Western values, will win if we in the West believe in what we're doing. there's no point in having a war on terrorism if civil liberties are being undermined to the extent that we aren't willing to fight that war. And this is particularly true in the cyber context. It turned out that the approach that was used at PayPal was essentially an anti-data mining approach. It was anti-data mining in the sense that data mining uses algorithms across large data sets. And what we do is we use what legal scholars call predicate-based search. So we would look at you, and then we would go out and say, oh, there's lots of different things in your life that may be indicative of someone involved in bad behavior. But it would also be very clear how the government looked at you. It wouldn't be a wide net cast into a sea of data that brings back all the innocent citizens that are touched by that net. It's a very precise operation, and each step in that operation is documented.
How much of your business is finding terrorists for the U.S. government or whoever wants to hire you?
Most of our business is in government, and it all involves both sides of this equation. Finding people who are up to essentially bad things, both in the anti-terror area, in cyber, in financial malfeasance, mortgage fraud, but also making sure the data is tagged in a way that allows agencies to collaborate with one another, which is one of the big findings in the 9/11 Commission. Why weren't people able to collaborate? People tend to focus on the policy issues, but there are also massive technical issues that had to be solved, and solved in a way where you can just install it. We do that. And the second piece is, how do you do it so that when the government is looking at you or me, it's clear that they're looking at you and me for a reason. If they bring a case against us, what is the case? Where did the evidence come from? Did it come from sources they were allowed to see? Did they migrate from the source of one piece of evidence into another source? These are the kind of questions that Americans care a lot about.
Why can't the government do this themselves?
First of all, we are a piece of this. The hardworking and tremendously impressive people that you meet when you're in this business are the most important part. Our part is to provide world-class software. This is something America, by the way, is very good at, and Silicon Valley is especially good at.
And that will continue in your judgment, in America's leadership in creating software?
I think software is probably an area where America will continue to lead. I think Silicon Valley will be at the tip of that movement. It's the place we've excelled at. Think of the software products you like to use, your audience likes to use. They're mostly American. And they don't use it because it's built in America. They use it because it's the best.
And why is that?
Well, the thing is, of course we have enormously talented people, but what makes a software product work is an ability to build a business around a compelling idea. And that while this seems obvious in America, and especially in Silicon Valley, in almost every other place, if you want to build a business, people will say, well, how are you going to make money tomorrow? In Silicon Valley, we build businesses around an idea, and then we figure out how we're going to make money. And this is incredibly important, because if you want something to really work, something really complicated, you cannot hire people who are motivated by a paycheck. They have to live and breathe it. They have to do it over a long period of time. You have to be willing to... Our company took 3 years to build before we even went to market. 3 years, no revenue. In any other part of the world, people would laugh you out of the room. You go into
but not in the venture capital world.
But not in Silicon Valley. It's a rare place where people...
Somewhere else. I mean, it doesn't have to be Silicon Valley for venture capital to say, you're not going to make revenue for 3 years, but then we believe that you have the seed to grow into something big.
Venture capital exists everywhere, but the companies that have been best at using that capital exist in America by and large, and particularly in Silicon Valley. And I believe it's not because we're smarter. It's because we work better together, because we're more likely to be compelled by a big idea and put monetization second. And this is the secret to our company. And even when we went to market, we didn't hire sales. We still don't have salespeople. We have no salespeople working for us at Palantir. We sell the product by exposing clients to it and saying, compare us to what you have.
So what's the compelling business idea here?
The compelling business idea is, if you want to make data, if you want to interact with data in a way that's intelligible to you, so the data that's around you, and you're the government, it's a very hard thing to do at scale. So let's just say you go to the market and you buy something. You talk on your cell phone. You send an SMS. You send it. Every little kind of, you write a report. All those are data. At massive scale, it's very hard for you to see that as a pattern. So what is the pattern of Charlie Rose? Is Charlie Rose interacting with people that are up to no good? And then it's very hard for me, the citizen of America, to look at the government and say, did they look at Charlie Rose because he was up to no good, or did they look at Charlie Rose because they didn't like his hair color? Oh, by the way, did they use Charlie Rose as a way to look at Charlie Rose's audience and find out who's in the audience? Well, if I'm looking at the government trying to figure that out, it's very hard to do. What's done currently is they hire a team of computer scientists who write algorithms that none of us understand.
Right.
And then they come back and say, oh, well, maybe. Do you believe the computer scientists they hire, or would you rather see it yourself? And that's what we offer. We offer a way to just plug on our platform, and you can be a leading expert in finding patterns in large data set. Whether those patterns are terrorists, they're cyber attackers, they're people, again, in financial malfeasance, or we, the people who want to look at what the government is doing in one form or another, either through Congress or through our attorneys, we can then see what the government is doing. This is very important. We also allow people to collaborate, which is an enormously important problem. When people look at what happened on 9/11, the conclusion was it happened because people weren't collaborating, and they focus on kind of...
Especially the CIA and the FBI.
Agencies did not effectively collaborate,
right.
And people focus on the policy and inability to work together, but there's also a massive technical issue. How do you work in a massive data set and take out the 2 pieces of data that the FBI is allowed to see? It's very tough, and that's something we have a turnkey approach to that. You can put our product on top of your servers, and you can collaborate tomorrow.
What patterns have you discovered about terrorists?
Well, obviously, we don't discuss exactly what we've done in a classified context, nor am I allowed to. But for example, in the Sinjar case, which is a case that was discussed in the public, we took a data set that lots of people had looked at, some of the world's experts, and we found that there was a group of people that lived in a village that was responsible for most of the attacks in Iraq. And we found out they were responsible for most of the money and most of the attacks. Now, that's very valuable and highly actionable information. If you know all the real attacks are coming from one source, there's a lot you can do about that. And this is typical for the kind of things, or when we looked at the Dalai Lama, a case which got a lot of public attention. We partnered with Citizen Lab in Canada, and we discovered that the Dalai Lama had been infiltrated by one of the world's most sophisticated and largest cyber networks. And we discovered that...
Working at the service of someone else?
Working at the service of somebody else.
A government?
That part we were not clear about, but we are clear. One of the very interesting things about cyber is this whole issue of attribution.
Right.
I think the metaphor that one could use in talking about cyber is maybe less cyber war, but the democratization of spy techniques. So in the 80s and the 70s, only large governments could pull off spy operations. Now, teenagers in the basement with a computer can pull off a spy operation, and it's very unclear if it's them or someone else. And the diagnostic you use is very, very complicated. It's not like someone breaks into your home, they leave a footprint or a handprint, or they leave a hair behind, or you take a picture of them. It's very, very tough to find out who they are. But what we can allow people to do is get a much better sense of what the evidence is, where it points to. The simple reason why simple data mining doesn't work, even leaving aside the moral issues it raises, is it uses a static algorithm against a non-static and highly entrepreneurial adversary.
That would be the terrorist.
That's the terrorist. And so what you need to do is have a platform that allows you to interact with the data and see the patterns before they realize they're giving off the patterns. So it's non-algorithmic. It's not static. And what we allow people to do is we allow the actual person doing the work, the analyst, the targeteer, to get ahead of the terrorist, to see patterns the terrorist doesn't realize they're giving off. And this is what... Now, how good is the terrorist? You have to think of terrorists as entrepreneurs. And they tend to be, I think, very good at what they do. And my view is we need to put our best entrepreneurs against their best entrepreneurs. That's how we win.
Because they all stopped using cell phones the way they used to and all those kinds of things.
Well, you can think of any approach you use as a static approach. They will figure that out. This person gets taken away, they do a diagnostic. How did that person get caught? And they change their patterns immediately. What we need to do is game them, is be ahead of whatever their technique is. And that requires people who are very flexible, agile, the kind of people that build weird companies in the Valley. You put them against these people. And that's, by the way, in these pockets in government, that's what you find, entrepreneurial people going after their entrepreneurship.
And where did they develop their entrepreneurship, and where did they develop their own computer savvy?
They believe in things that we don't believe in and I think are highly destructive, but they're nevertheless maybe the most interesting, talented people of their society. It's the same place we get our entrepreneurs. The best schools, the best minds, or people who are just good at something that's very valuable.
Moving to cyber warfare, what do you fear the most?
If we as a country understand what the danger is, and we as a country understand the kind of that it's possible to fight this without giving up our civil liberties, we'll win. If we underestimate the danger, or we perceive this as a war that will be costly to who we are, we'll lose. Democracies tend to win when the country gets behind it. We are kind of the greatest democracy in the world, and we tend to win wars where the people believe in what they're doing. Where the people think that there's a trade-off between civil liberties and fighting cyber terrorists, it's going to be very hard to win. As long as we have computers that are turned on, there will be people that penetrate them. Every time we find a way to block them, they'll find a way in. The danger is real, and it's going to be with us the rest of our life. Now the question is, if the danger is real and it's with us for the rest of our life, what can we as citizens do, we as Americans do, that allows us to experience the liberty we want and stop them? And I think unless that educational piece is really addressed directly, we will have a problem.
Educating the public about the threat?
Both the threat and the way...
necessity of taking certain...
approaches. Obviously, I'm biased, and I think, Palantier's ability to tag data and show what the government has done is enormously important. But you have to explain, if this is explained where there's a contradiction between our liberty and protecting ourselves, we're going to have a real problem. It's just the same way in any other war, where if it's we don't believe in what we're doing, we can't win. Where Americans believe in what we're doing, we tend to do very well.
But then are you arguing if they believe in what you're doing, they're willing to give up civil liberties?
Well,
is that part of the argument you're making?
No, well, I believe one of the reasons why I actually talk in public is there are approaches like ours which allow the people to make sure the government is actually doing what it claims to do. So if you understand what the government is doing to protect and you understand what the limits are and you know those limits and they can be enforced, that's one thing. If it's data mining where they're casting a massive net under the aegis of protecting us, well, that's not fine. So let me give you a concrete example. Data destruction, something that is not talked about enough. So you're running a large multinational company and the government knocks on your door and says, your data is about to be destroyed. We know it because we were down the stairs. We have also classified files. We understand what's going on. We need to make a copy now of your data to prevent it from being destroyed because we know how to secure that data. Well, you might be in favor of that, except for you want to make sure they're not going to use that data against you. Like, what's the guarantee that they use it, that data doesn't get migrated into a case that the government brings against you? What if the government already has a case against you?
Answer your own questions.
Well, our approach is when the government takes the data, it's tagged in a way that shows the source. So it can't be migrated from the data they've taken from you to a case they have pending. And this is enormous.
So if they take the data, you make sure they tag it.
If you use our platform, we can take that data and ingest it. It's tagged. If it's migrated into a case that they may have running against you, your defense attorneys will see that. And you'll say, okay, well, this data came from data I gave you. This is enormously important. You're not going to have buy-in to help the government protect you unless you know that your liberty is going to be protected. And this is something we do kind of turnkey, or as we'd say in the Valley, out of the box. Whether you used us or whether you build a system, that's not my point. These kind of things have to be built in and baked in, and they have to be discussed with the American people.
I'm always perplexed by this question. If the CIA can hire people like you, like Palantir Technologies, why can't bad guys hire people, not you, but people like you?
Well, I think... Actually,
because they don't exist?
No,
Is that the answer?
No. I think the bad guys do get people of equal talent to what we can get. I think that we in America are very good at organizing ourselves so that we outperform the bad guys they get. But I think they get very talented people. And the cyber context is a great example. You have what are probably bands of teenagers taking down major organizations. These are highly talented, highly motivated.
That's happening today, or that the potential to do that is there?
If what we found with the Dalai Lama and our other kind of open source operations is indicative of what's out there. It's out there. It exists today. There are many cases where we don't know it's happening, and we are all capable of being targeted and taken down. Software and technology has democratized espionage. So what would have taken a large governmental organization now can be done with 2 or 3 teenagers in a coffee shop. The biggest question...
This is really scary.
Yeah, the biggest question that you as a president would have to, if you were a president, you would have to decide, an organization in America is being taken down. Okay? We know it's being taken down. What is the response? That person has gotten inside an organization with significant security and been able to obfuscate who they are. Doesn't that sound like the John le Carré novels you read? Of course it does. Yeah, so, but now you don't need to be in a governmental organization. You can be a single teenager. Now, you as the president, to go back to the example, how do you respond? Well, if it's a government organization, you call up and say, look, you either stop or we're going to come after you. But what if it's a teenager? And before you've solved that issue, you cannot respond. And this is a major issue that...
Okay, but it's part of your ability to see around the corner then, in terms of before they take it down, you can see patterns of people and or actions and or behavior.
Well, what we do is we help people, like we did with the Dalai Lama, figure out if you actually have been infiltrated. So what kind of data is leaving.
And they had been.
They had been, and in a massive way. But then, two, we say these people are likely to actually be this. They appear to be teenagers, but they are teenagers that are likely being handled by this organization. They actually are teenagers. Or more likely, when you're done with our diagnostic, we say, we are not sure who they are, but we are sure they are in this building. Why don't you send someone to go find out who they are?
Why isn't this going to collide head-on into privacy and civil liberties?
Well, it would if there was a contradiction between finding terrorists and protecting civil liberties. But the exact same transparency you can use to find terrorists, you can use to see what the government's using. The central question, in my view, of civil liberties is how, it's not if the government has data, because let's assume the government has as much data as a health insurance company. It's how is that data being used? Is it being used in a way that's lawful? Meaning, do they have the right to use it? And is it being migrated into places it's not allowed to be used? We allow the enforcement of rules that government ought to enforce. And by the way, my experience is they want to enforce, or at the very least know they need to enforce. And if it's framed in that way, then you can have what is the ultimate Silicon Valley solution. You remove the contradiction and we all march forward.
It's extraordinary stuff. Thank you for coming.